Hey everybody, it's Joe from Greenlight Sound and greenlightsound.com, and today we've got a sort of first look at a plugin that just came out. This is the Scheps Omni Channel strip plugin from Waves, and I just heard about it yesterday, and this is January 25th, by the way, 2018, so yesterday, January 24th, 2018. But the channel strip is pretty cool and unique in several ways. First of all, it comes from Andrew Scheps, one of the top mixers in the business who has a lot of mixes of a bunch of different styles of music that are highly regarded and highly respected. Mostly works in a hybrid fashion, both in the analog world with outboard gear and with plugins sometimes. And he's even done some tutorials in the past where he does both. He mixes the same tune completely out of the box, analog, outboard gear, mixing console versus completely in the box. And he can achieve very similar results in both ways just because he knows what he's doing. But I want to go over first the plugin in general and some of the cool things about it. First, it comes in several different components, some of which are not common on other channel strips. The first one is the preamp right here. This is one of the unusual parts of the plugin. Most of the channel strip plugins out there don't come with the preamp section that is so customizable, at least. Here, saturation. You can push up the saturation for odd harmonics, even harmonics, and just heavy saturation. Right below that, we've got our filters, our high pass and low pass filter. Selectable slopes here of 6, 12, and 18 dB per octave. And this thump section is a resonant peak down in the low end that'll kind of do what it says. It adds some thump down there in the low end. Sort of like that pull check trick of having that little bit of a boost down there in the low end. Second component of the plugin here is a gate. The gate is pretty much a standard gate, a gate or an expander. Typical control threshold, the attack, release, where the gate closes, how far the gate will close with the floor, and you can see a little meter here, LED style for the gate. Next component over here, this DS squared, is really unique because at its basic, it can be used as a de-esser by finding the higher end frequencies where the S's and plosives typically occur, setting a threshold. This would be the filter type of a high shelf for a typical de-esser. But the unique thing about it is that you have these different filter types of a low shelf, a tight notch, a wide bell, completely sweepable frequencies from 20 hertz to 20K. And you have two different instances of this. So it can be used in a sense like a multi-band compressor, which is basically what a de-esser is, where you can do the high end here, or let's say you had some low end rumble you wanted to take out, well, you could do the same thing down here. Next one, the EQ section is pretty standard for a channel strip with a high shelf. A high shelf can be switched between a standard shelf, which is on most channel strips, a different kind of shelf with some under and overshoot here, and fully parametric with a bandwidth or a Q engaged here. A mid and tone, sort of mid-range filters. On wide mode here, where you can see this little half circle, they're actually the same. On this tight mode, they're a little bit different in tone, but they cover the same ground, which is plus or minus 18 dB, fully sweepable from 20 hertz to 20K. And then the low end, sort of the same as the high end, 3 same types of filter, and fully sweepable down there. So between these 4 sections, you can cover most EQ needs you would have. The compressor section over here, and you can see I'm turning these on and off. The names are up, being highlighted in orange here, and that just turns on each specific section. And as far as I know, the plugin only uses processing for when these components are on. So as I turn components off, the processing power should go down. The compressor here is unique again with channel strips because most channel strips have one style of compression. For example, if you have an SSL channel strip plugin, very common, a lot of mixers use, you'll have a VCA style compressor. Well, this one has the VCA option, the FET option, like an 1176, and an opto compressor option, like an LA2A. So you really have the standard 3 big compressors here of a SSL style VCA compressor, an 1176 style FET compressor, and an LA2A style optical compressor, all in the same plugin. Standard threshold control, ratio, attack, release, LED style gain reduction meter, output here to control the compressor module's output, and a mix knob, which is nice for parallel processing right within. And now we come to another one of the really unique things about the plugin here, which is an insert, which can be moved anywhere in here. You can add any Waves plugin you have, or any one of these components of this plugin in duplicate. That's pretty cool for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you wanted to put one of the Waves limiters in here, or any of their other plugins somewhere in the middle of this channel strip, you can just drag this around and put it wherever you need it to go. The downside of it, it's only Waves plugins that are used. But I can see just using the modules included with this plugin. You could add another one of these DS squareds and have basically a 4-band multi-band compressor within the channel strip. Over here in the master section, the meters can be input meters, output meters, gain reduction meter to see your compression and limiting. Limiter can be turned on, basic limiter with a threshold only knob. You can monitor in different ways. You can monitor stereo, left side, right side, flip it to mono, and mid and side mode if you were to want to hear the mid signal versus the side signal. Input and output controls, standard 2. One of the cool things is if you click up here, you can expand the view of each module to have a better view of exactly what's going on. So the controls aren't so small. You can get some more detail work going in. And each module can be done in that exact same way where you open it up and see the full thing there. One of the downsides, I think, of this plugin, too, really, if you have an iMac or even a Windows computer with a high resolution display or a Mac Retina display, the controls are sort of small for a modern plugin that's just been released in 2018. If your controls are going to be that small and you're going to have this design, then make the GUI resizable. Simple as that. I would think if you can just drag this and enlarge the screen or have different selectable sizes of this plugin, it would be really helpful because this is kind of tiny. And the point of the channel strip is to have all the controls right in front of you. But if you have to open each one to see it, well, you defeat the purpose of having the channel strip. You might as well have separate plugins and click between those because it'll be the same deal. So that's one of my downsides. Okay, so the next thing I'd like to do is hear it in action. I'm going to start out by playing it on the drums bus. And rather than go through each of these, which is kind of time consuming for me to set up, I'm just going to pick a few presets here. And the first one I'm going to look at here is going to be from Jacquire King, and it's going to be our Drum Bus 1 preset. And I'll play a little bit. I'll bypass the plugin and play unprocessed. That's the raw drum sound there. I'll engage the plugin. Let's see what it's doing. First of all, you can see some saturation, some even order harmonics, not that much going on. High pass filter is not engaged. Low pass filter is not engaged. No thump engaged here. EQ section, you have a slight boost, 3.3 at 12K, standard shelf. Mid section is fully parametric here. Mid-size bandwidth, not too tight, not too wide. And you're at 622 hertz, pulling out a little bit of that mid-range, 1.3 of that 622 mid-range. Tone down here in the EQ section, you're on the wider bandwidth filter type. You have basically 2.2K, push of about 3.5 for some of that upper mid-range bite. And the low end, fully parametric, pretty wide Q. It's 84 hertz, you're pushing up a little bit to get some of that thump of the kick drum. Our DS module here, not engaged at all. Number 2, not engaged at all. The threshold is not doing anything. VCA Style Compression, think SSL, bus compressor, typical for drums. And we'll see if the gate has any attenuation going on. All right, so here's what it sounds like with processing. What you hear right off the bat is it's pretty heavy compression with the mix knob going almost halfway up. So it's parallel compression. That's why you get that big thump and gritty sound. That plus the preamp section here. Unprocessed again. Processed. Cool. All right, so there it was on drums. Now here I have a plucked acoustic part we're going to look at in a moment, but first let's take a look at the bass. I'll basically do the same thing load a preset. This time I want to pick one of the Andrew Scheps presets here because his are kind of unique. I'm going to go for clear bass. What you're going to see, this focus button up here, if I click it, you'll notice a few of these controls get highlighted. And this focus is sort of a cool teaching tool, and it shows you what Andrew Scheps focuses on when he's mixing that specific instrument. So if you choose a bass preset like we did here, he's thinking, okay, here's the high end I'm thinking about EQ-wise. This is the kind of the narrow Q. That's important. Mid-range, probably for some mid-range cuts. You can hear it through the mix. And the style of compression, I want LA2A style optical compression on bass, typical. And the attack time here, we're saying, well, we don't want that fast of an attack on the bass. We want some sort of that bass pluck to come through. So let's hear it before processing. I'll bypass the plugin. Here's this bass part. I'll get rid of the drums bus first. Here's the bass by itself. And with the plugin engaged. Cool, I had to pull the output down a little bit to match the gain slightly. Pick another bass preset here. Dirty bass. That would sound cool in a really dense mix by itself. It seems pretty heavy-handed. And you can see the order of processing was switched around for this preset. The preamp is in the middle here, heavy saturation boosted 100%. Just slamming this thing with saturation, which is where all the grit comes from. Next, we'll take a look at bass DI. Pretty smooth sound in that one. A lot more low end comes in that one, most likely from this resonant thump down here, that 4 dB thump. Some saturation. That's one of the coolest things about the plugin. If I play that same bass loop with this exact preset, but I take out the preamp here, you'll hear the difference. I mean, that saturation just really fills in that bottom end and gives such a fuller sounding bass part. That's really nice. All right, on to, I have a Plucked acoustic guitar here. I'll put it in the stereo. It's pretty quiet. So I'll pick another preset here. I'll pick the Andrew Scheps. Let's say, how about we'll do Clean Up My Acoustic Guitar. It sounds like a pretty cool one. Let's try with that preset here. Again, the focus knobs are here. You can see some sort of DS squared de-esser components, but we're not using it as a typical de-esser here. You can see it's a notch. That notch is about 8.1K. And we also have a wider sort of bell filter here at 70 Hertz. So basically like a multiband compressor taking out some of that low end at 70, and a multiband compressor with a tighter Q up here at about 8.1K. Take the DS out. Cool, take another preset. How about more pick on that guitar? Yeah, that's getting almost into an effect more than a typical channel strip use. Cool. All right, the next one I'd like to look at over here is a strummed acoustic part. Bring the plugin back over. I'll take a look at a different preset here. Let's do acoustic guitar preset from Brad Divins. Now let me put that in full stereo again. Nice. Some typical, or I should say atypical, not usual, preamp saturation, heavy saturation for an acoustic guitar. Filters are being used here for high pass up to 120. You can see the EQ section here, little high-end sparkle, slight bit of upper mid-range 3K, pulling out some 400, that boxiness on an acoustic guitar, and nothing happening in the low end. De-esser unit. Nothing's going on, no threshold. LA2A style compression, pretty typical for an acoustic guitar. Gate's not being used. So basically you have some saturation, some EQ, and that's it, with some light compression. And when you have a preset like this where the signal's not too hot, I would take that threshold down just to get a little bit of compression showing. Bypassed. Engaged. All right, and the last thing I'd like to take a look at it on will be some vocals here. So I'll solo the vocal up. I'm burning so bright, I'm alive. Oh, the very first. And that is the raw vocal. Take an Andrew Scheps preset here, go to vocal 1. The focus shows us he's concerned with some preamp saturation. Typical on vocals here. You want to sort of overdrive that preamp, give some grit to the signal. And the de-esser, obviously, that's important when you have a vocal part in there. EQ here, we've got a boost around 7.8 for that high-end sparkle. 5.8 boost, pretty significant, around 4.8K for some intelligibility. That's where the vocal really cuts through. Boosting again down here, 257, I guess, for some body there. And then we have Vca Style Compression for our compressor attack and release here. We have pretty much a medium attack, not too fast, and a quick release. Quick release gives some excitement usually to the part. So here it is, processed. I'm burning so bright, I'm alive. Oh, the very first. Bypassed. I'm burning so bright, and engaged again, obviously louder. I'm burning so bright, I'm alive. Oh, even when I take that output down. I'm burning so bright, I'm alive. Oh. You can hear that grittiness the preamp adds to the vocal track. So there it is, the Scheps Omni Channel. I think the biggest advantage of this would be the fact that you have this preamp saturation built in, the fact that these modules are switchable in any order you want. You have parallel processing built in. You have VCA FET optical style compression. And also something I forgot to mention, that these modules can be in mid-side mode versus stereo. And any one module, you can choose where you go in and out of mid-side mode. So if you wanted to, for example, use the DS on the side signal only. If say you have a drums bus, the cymbals are panned out, they're really harsh. You want to have a high shelf DS to sort of multi-band compress and bring those down. You can do that with this plugin. Big advantages there. And you also get some really cool presets that can be used for learning how to mix, or how Andrew Scheps mixes. When you click any of these, you get these focus areas saying, okay, this is what, when you're mixing, this is what you want to look at. You want to saturate this, you want to do this, you want to do that, depending on what the preset is. Disadvantages of this plugin, in my opinion, are, number one, it's small on my screen. Maybe it won't be on yours, but on mine, it's kind of hard to read some of these smaller readings. It's not resizable. That's a disadvantage. Doesn't look great on a Retina display. Number two, this uses more processing power. If you have all of these engaged, it uses quite a bit of processing power versus the standard channel strip. So I think if you got a really large mix and threw this on every single channel, you would run out of processing power faster than you would with some of the other channel strip plugins. Other than that, though, I think it's a pretty good deal. Now, if you have a bunch of other channel strips and some saturation plugins or some preamp plugins already, I don't think this is going to do anything that you can't do already. It just does it in one plugin by itself, which is convenient and time-saving for a lot of people. So there it is, the Scheps Omni Channel from Waves. If you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.